Actually working on this car again. I'm not going to do a full build on it. I'm going to mostly just introduce you to it and discuss some of the tools that I will be using to build it. This is what I call a minor build. These were made as promotional models to start with, and then they would take the tool for the promotional model and turn it into a kit, and what they call the annual kit from the 1960s into the 1970s. Actually started out about the 1958 was when I think AMT started theirs out. So this is the 1963 Ford Galaxie 500 XL. I have a few parts over here that I have painted for it and some more over in the box over there. But what we're going to be talking about is some of the tools and a couple minor things that I'll be using for building it. And to start out with, we will be talking about, let's actually start about this chrome trim that goes around here and here. After painting the car, we've done it in gold and black, and we'll be putting on bare metal foil. And let me see if I can get this so that you can see it. Okay, so this is bare metal foil, and I use that on sections such as these wide chrome places there, and around the chrome trim, and this trim around the windows. That's where I use that primarily. And then when I get into things like the detail of the door handles and this small trim on these window posts and such, I'll use a thing called the Molotov liquid chrome. Mirror effect is what I have here. It comes in different sizes. That's the things that I use on that. My regular glues that I use to put the model together, I use Plastruct Bondine is one of the major ones. I use many different ones. That's one of the major ones. This in here is I either hate, or love. I prefer it. I really like this glue. I use it just almost as much as I use the Plastruct glue. And this is Tester's Red Cement. Don't get the blue. And then for the windows, we're going to show you another thing on the windows here. But when I glue windows in, I use this canopy glue. I really like this. It's water-based, and if you do get glue on the windows, you can just simply wipe that off. So that's my preferred on that. I do also use the Plastruct Bondine. I have used that too. One trick that I use when I'm putting in the windows is on these annuals, they have these pieces that go across here that hold the two pieces together with front and rears. Now, if I was doing a contest model, I would cut that off and put in a headliner and so on and so forth there. I would get rid of this. And just because it's more detail oriented to not have it there. But for just a simple kit is what I'm doing now, I'm going to leave those pieces on there. I'm going to take double-sided, this is a Scotch thin double-sided tape. I simply lay that on there and flip that up into the roof and hold it there for a few seconds, and that will bond that to the roof without having any glue marks or anything like that coming through. So yes, there'll be people that are going to come on and tell you, no, you need to cut that off. Well, depending on what level of modeling you're going for, it's whether you need to cut that off. But for just a simple shelf model like what I'm going here, I'm going to leave that on and use the double-sided tape on that. Some of the tools I use. Okay, this is called a sprue. This is what your parts come on. And this is called a sprue cutter. You go in and you simply cut off the part. If you try and break that off, a lot of times you'll break that into the piece, the part you don't want to have that chipped out of. This cuts it so that it doesn't do that. That's where your files come in. I have a selection of files, and you can just file that smooth there. When you have to make a cut, you can file that smooth. An X-Acto knife, I use that pretty extensively. and that's used for cutting especially close places or for trimming out different areas on the body. I also use the file in places too. And then I also have scissors for cutting open the bags. Sometimes I use a knife, but I've had a few too many times when I'd be cutting open a bag and I would, well, we won't go into what happens then. So that is the basics of that. We are going to talk just a little bit about polishing and sanding. I do that after I've built the model of one of the preparations is to get a sanding kit. I've got another sanding kit that's a little closet someplace here, but this is different levels of sandpaper that go from I think it's 2,000 to 12,000 grit, something like that. I know it goes up 12,000 grit. So those are the important things to remember, and like I said, these things, some of them just feel like leather actually. Those are the different things that I use as just a very, very, very basic of model kits. If you're just your first time getting a model kit, those are some of the things you're gonna want. I mean, you can sit there and just peel these parts off without a sprue cutter, but it's gonna make it a lot nicer if you get a sprue cutter. I mean, you can sit here and glue this to the roof, or you can cut it and you don't glue, but anytime you're using glue up around the roof, you also have the tendency that those glues can sometimes leave marks in the roof. So I prefer to do it this way as much as possible. If I've got to cut that off and glue that into that framework there, I'm going to try then and use the canopy glue, which is going to leave much less of a chance of getting anything on the window or little marks in there. That is about the basics of what I've got to say on this matter. So this is the Modeling Hermit, and I am off the air and gone. I had mentioned earlier about gluing the windows in to these cars. This is the 63 Ford that I was talking about earlier too, and purple there. I wanted to once again touch onto this. Now, many of us, when we're doing contest quality models or beyond shelf quality models, we will take and cut the glass at like a point right here and here, and then we'll cut it around here too, and then glue that into place. On this is just a shelf quality model. I'm not going to get that carried away. I'm going to use these braces that they have between the front and the back, and I'm going to simply take some double stick tape and just lay that on there. There is to it. Now, if I was doing a headliner and such like that in there, and that would come out. I need to put this on a little bit straighter here. Okay, and then that just simply goes up into, get that hair out of the way, goes up into the car like this here. And I just hold that down for a few seconds. Okay, so now we have our glass taped in to the roof of the car, ceiling actually on this part, headliner area. And speaking of headliner, now if I was doing a contest quality model or anything beyond a shelf quality model, I would add a headliner to that with fabric, such to make it blend in better. But we're going to just simply add our interior now, and we've done totally stock. We just painted it black and then picked the accents out with chrome paint and such. So that is the basis of our kit, and we're just going to drop that into place. There's a couple, that's not good on the top. There's a couple of attachment points here, and then again here. And we're just going to drop this in on those. And they supply a couple of little goodies, these little round thingies here. Sometimes they work, sometimes you have to grind them out. These here seem to actually be a little bit big for it this time. But the nice thing is they can put those onto there. Let's try flipping them, this one over. Sometimes if you do that, it holds better. Okay, if it doesn't hold good, that's when we get our glue out and we go and try to glue that in a little bit better. So I'm using Plastrect glue, and I'm just going to drop that, a couple drops of that on there. If I get it in the right place, I dropped it down the hole there. There we go. And again there. And that's going to hold that fairly decent. And then I come up to the front of this, and I've got the firewall that's going to go in there too. And that slides in, sometimes easily, sometimes you have to work with it a little bit. Pull that up a little and drop that in. And that should go right into there. Now this is where I use this red tube glue. And I don't get really carried away. I just drop some in on there and right there. And then I'm going to also try and aim some just right there to help hold in the interior. It doesn't take much. Okay, so what I did was I added glue to this point behind the firewall, there and here, and then there's a little place that dips in there that I was able to add a little glue right there. That's going to be enough to hold that. It doesn't take a lot. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the chassis and placing it underneath the car. But before we can do that, we have placement of the bumpers, and they have little holes here that coincide with these pins that they put on in place of the old screws. These used to be screw bottom cars. So that, and I've already got the taillights glued into this. So that just simply slides right in there. And this gets a little tricky now, since we don't have screws to hold that in. So we have to place that in. I always do the back one first. And that just, wow, I wish I could, well, can't get around where you can see what I'm doing, I don't think. I'm actually going to start this because I've got fender skirts on this one. I'm going to take a break from you guys for a little bit while I work with this, because you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing anyway. Okay, so we had to make a couple of minor alterations in putting the model together. I went ahead and glued the back bumper and the front bumper onto it, and we had the firewall glued in. But actually the spinners on the hubcap stuck out too far for the fender skirts to be used. So just a note, if you're going to use fender skirts, cut the wheel back down a little bit to make that fit better. And now we're just about ready to just drop in essentially the last piece. And what we have to do is we have to make this piece right here, this little stem, go into that hole, and these stems go into those holes, and there's stems on the front too, and they have to go into those holes. Like I said, I've got the grill and bumper built onto there already. I'm going to see if instead of having to glue this, I can just simply drop these things in and see if that will work. Okay, so I got that one aimed there and that one aimed into there. Now what we have to do is got to pull this out just a little bit to clear that fender skirt. And I think that's already aimed in at the front. And I should really be able to just drop those right on in. But of course now there's always got to be that little catch there that makes things somewhat difficult. But there we are. There we are. That. Some junk off the roof of this. That's being a real pain in the neck. And we're going to